question to Komal and Bijal. So, what do you, to both of you, it's a common question. Like, can you walk us through the importance and strategies of sustainable site planning? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I can go first. With sustainable site planning, I think, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, and a lot of the panelists touch about as well, is the need for looking at it holistically. So when you're thinking of sustainable site planning, it's kind of a multiple approach, right? First is what impacts can sustainable site planning have on related to kind of water management? So low impact site development for stormwater or rainwater management. Uh, Secondly, how can your site planning result in a reduced heat island, which is a very big part of urban environments? How can we create environments that, they're cooler than their neighboring urban environments, either by trees or by low impact strategies such as having more greenery and so on and shaded areas as well. And then the third aspect is, so you talk about heat island reduction, you talk about low impact stormwater management. And then third, I think, is just related to what other panelists touch upon, is the quality of life and making these environments livable and pedestrian friendly, both in terms of access, encouraging an active lifestyle where people can actually walk around. Those different aspects of it become very important as well.
Understand the context. Where is the site? Understand what you are building and who you are building it for, along with other as parameters such as understand the geography, understand the ecology of the site. That's when you will have a picture of what to build and how to build it. Till you don't know that, I don't think you can reach any of these things. Like if my site has too much rainfall, can do I really need rainwater harvesting, and how do I do the rainwater harvesting if that's the amount of rainfall that I have? So such things are important to understand when you start with site planning.
Okay. That's like, okay. Now, my question to Gaurav Varmani. Sir, can you just walk us upon the how has technology reshaped sustainable construction processes? What are your ideas on that?
So when we talk of technology, Nupama, any area that you touch, let's start from energy efficiency and talking of smart buildings or materials. So every area you have very strong technological interventions that are happening. When we talk of energy efficiency, you have smart sensors and IoTs coming into place. You have energy modeling softwares helping us out, renewable energy integration happening with various technological advancements, which are like solar panels, wind turbines, various. When you talk of areas in terms of materials, you could talk of interventions and support from green materials that are happening. 3D printing is coming up in a big way, which is again going to be a highly a big support in carrying this endeavor of sustainability forward. Recycling and smart materials play a big role all across. There could be areas in terms of waste management, smallest of very important areas. So you have AI and machine learning, which is supporting these aspects. So each and every aspect that we touch, you will have a technological support happening. Your recycling systems, your when you talk of water, again, smart plumbing systems are there. Without technology, this wouldn't have been possible. And as I mentioned in my presentation, also, it's all about data. So when you have the data, you map that, the matrices speak for themselves, and then you can work towards the final result. So all that is, I would say, technology getting integrated into the final play.
Okay. So Gaurav, Mathur, do you have any additional points to add, or anybody else? So our next question will be like, what are the passive design strategies that you recommend for hot and cold climates?
Passive design is very important for sustainable architecture, and that's the most intrinsic part of the whole process that should be there. Because when we talk about green buildings, it is mostly about efficiency first and the add-ons later. So when we talk about passive design, we already talked about having the right orientation, the right kind of materials, and the right kind of approach towards making the layouts and the openings and various other things. So the kind of orientation that should be there in a building that allows maximum amount of heat during winters, but yes, cutting the heat during summers. So along with orientation, we use shading devices and like sunshades, the amount of sunshade that should be there. So these are very careful studies that need to be there, and because we have to be, first of all, taking care of the entire design in the first place, and then we should be taking care of the internal aspects later. So the shading devices, the kind of glass, the materials, and then of course the natural surrounding elements play a lot of role, like the trees and other materials, the site materials also, because a lot of these materials have a lot of impact on the building itself. So the kind of heat that is developed, or the kind of ventilation that is required. So passive design strategies with these process-driven designs with respect to orientation, shading devices, building materials, use of natural elements, and of course internal elements also, with good healthy materials, with paints, and something which does not deteriorate the spatial quality or the spatial health factor of the space. So these are the intrinsic factors. The next thing comes later, which is some active methods of dispersing bad air outside and other things. So I feel this is very important for sustainable architecture.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So my question to Sonal, like, how important do you think is the collaborative effort of architects, builders, and other stakeholders when you design a building for, to meet the sustainability criteria?
I think it's if we are speaking of any kind of large scale or high performance building, then it is inevitable. It is almost more than necessary to have this collaborative approach and to have everyone on board from the beginning, to have everyone's goal aligned from the very start. Urban setting where we have regular commercial or any large scale, even residential kind of a buildings. I think it's very important for all of these stakeholders to align very well from the very start. Then only we can set the right kind of right kind of things in place for the other stakeholders to take it ahead from. Otherwise, we have no case to start with.
Okay, great. So another question to everyone there, like, can you just throw some light on the sustainable materials that can be used, like, most advisable sustainable materials in the Indian context? Anyone could take it up.
I could start. See, there are a lot of materials, and we can have multiple local materials, multiple technology-driven materials. But it is important to understand the life cycle process of that material, how it is going to work across the entire life of the building. Do I need to rework or repair that material? Will that harm the people who are living there? That is more important to understand when you are selecting a material. Is something which I understand is the prime most thing when you are selecting one.
Okay. So any other different thoughts to this, like,
I think
anything related to
I'll
it?
just add to it. I couldn't disagree. I completely agree with Bijal when she says about it's under the life cycle part of the materials. I think what's the right materials is, I don't know if that's the right question, because what is the right material depends on the right project, where it's located, what the
Yeah.
purpose of it is. Healthcare materials are very different versus what we use in office buildings or airports. So that all matters as well. But I think what holds true is, as she mentioned, the really shifting our mindset from materials to just being materials for the time being versus the holistic approach to materials as architects and interior designers we should be focusing on. So really knowing what's gone in the manufacturing of the material, how much energy has it taken, what kind of labor has gone in, have there been ethical practices in the construction of those materials, what happens in the transportation of the materials, how easy or hard are those materials to install, what emissions they cause during installation, during the entire life cycle of the project, the 50 years in the building, what people are breathing in and breathing out, all of that. And then lastly, I think something that our industry can really look at is, how do these materials get disposed of and what happens to their impact? And that needs to be thought of in the design or the pre-design phases when that is being structured. So do they have take back programs? Are they easily deconstructed, or can they be, carpets are starting to do that, can they be deconstructed correctly? Do they release emissions when during deconstruction as well? So I think that's an important aspect as well.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think I would
Yeah.
like to add here that the context makes the huge difference. You know, it depends on what you're choosing for which place, for what reason, and what are you, what is the end, what is the expectation from that material, right? What are we expecting out of it? Because that completely changes with the scale, the usability, and the typology of the project or the building or any kind of build mass itself. While we say that, at the same time, I think that there should be, I personally feel there should be a lot of recycled materials that should come in mainstream now, and we should be more open to adopting these, rather than sometimes being hung up on, certain laid down criterias or certain aesthetic requirements. Maybe if you are able to involve and openly accept these things and make an effort to try and include them as much as we can in all of our projects, I think that would be a great thing. And I personally feel that it's quite a doable thing. It's not something which is too hard to achieve. We're using an industrial waste slag for subgrades of the internal roads, because it's a large scale project and there is a substantial amount of road work that needs to happen there. So which I consider as a great positive there. But again, when I say the context, what I mean is this was coming from from within the proximity of the site. This was available and it was located and it was decided to use it. Of course, there was a change in specification. We had to go through some tests and things like that. But given the same thing, if this was coming from very far, from some location that was not closer to us, then it would completely make no sense to do this, in spite of it being the recycled content, in spite of it being the complete waste. So hence the context of what we are speaking of when we say a material selection or the option to choose from the available things, it matters hugely.
Okay, thank you
So
for
to
that.
You
add
need
to
to be
that,
very innovative and agile in adapting to these situations.
Sorry,
You
sir,
need
can
to,
you repeat that?
I said, you need to be very innovative and agile in
Yes,
adapting
yes,
to these
yes. That's
solutions,
what I
and
mean. That
all stakeholders
completely.
need to come on the same page to
Yes,
accept it.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So that's why education is very important. Educating your client, educating your contractor, educating your client that it's not going to
And
cost you more
yeah,
and it's not going
contractor
to
as well,
be
yes.
time consuming. Educating the contractor how to use that material and what is the process for preparing. Probably you may have to prepare that material on site itself, or you get the
That
ready-made
extra
things
effort,
that
that
do.
extra
So it's
mile
so
is very
important
important.
to study the material. uh, I mean, as architects, we truly enjoy to create and innovate, not just the buildings but the materials as well.
Yes.
But we have to educate people about this more and more so that it becomes successful.
So on this aspect, I'll from my personal experience, I'll add something. See, sometimes most of the times it is perceived that it is only the aesthetical part of it which is in question when we are saying these materials, but actually not. Okay, so aesthetically it may be still acceptable. A lot of places it may not matter aesthetically. Like I give you an example, it doesn't matter to me aesthetically whether what is going in the subgrade of my road. But most hurdles are either at the end of the acceptance on the on the user or the client front, or maybe some contractual process that stops us from bringing something like this in there, or some kind of a
You need to take the
contractor
ownership and
who
responsibility.
is not accepting a change at that point of time. So these are the other stakeholders that we need to bring together. So it's not, the focus here is not just about the client and the architect, but I think everyone else who is involved in this, I think they also, if they are well educated enough on this front, to make them understand that what it means to in terms of sustainability and all these other aspects of sustainability that we are trying to seek together, I think that's the way we will be able to make some difference there.
Then
Yes, sir.
you talked about the Indian context, so I would say that the proportion of usage of certain materials has to be rethought over by all the designers, all the architects. It's about usage of glass, usage of solid materials versus usage of glass. So I feel that's something in proportion that is quite lopsided right now. We are seeking to have those kind of facades where things are we are imitating the Western culture. So we need to be going towards that. That is one major thing that I feel in terms of the proportion of materials.
Okay, that's great.